now. All right. Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Our session is titled "Why We Don't Need Marketing, at least not all the time." I can already hear the marketers in the audience going, "What is she talking about?" But Max, let's jump right in. Instacart is a $3.4 billion company now, and you only started this in 2012. Can you just talk briefly about what your company does, and then we'll jump right into why you made this decision of not spending on marketing?
Yeah, thank you, Angela. So if you're not familiar with Instacart, we're a 1-hour grocery delivery service. So we allow you to get your groceries from your favorite local grocery store delivered in as little as an hour. And so the way that works is you get our app or you shop online, you choose your groceries, and then 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour later, those things appear on your doorstep. And so we've been building the company for 5 years. We're super excited, and the reason we didn't use marketing in the first 3 or 4 years of our company is we had no idea how to do it and no money.
Very, very simple answer. So you didn't have any money. Could you tell us some of the non-traditional marketing tactics that you've used instead then?
Yeah, so I think people equate marketing one-to-one with growth, right? Like you're going to spend money and then you're going to get growth. And as you know, startups really need growth, but there's lots of ways to get growth. And so what we found is that, and we tried paid marketing, and we tried advertising, and we tried all kinds of stuff in the real world. We hung flyers on doors, and we passed out flyers on cars, and did all kinds of stuff, and none of it seemed to really work. And when it did work, it didn't attract the kind of customers that we wanted for our service that would stick around and use us every week. And what we found is that as we poured more and more energy and time and money into our product, into making our product better, our product became our marketing, right? And we would create these wonderful moments in our product, and from those moments, people would tell their friends about Instacart, and that's how we grew, through organic word of mouth.
Some of the non-traditional marketing tactics that you mentioned to me before is spending on making the experience better.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate a little bit on that, and also your partnership marketing as well as your what you call your magic moments?
Yeah, sure. So those are 3 good examples. So when you get your groceries delivered, right, they have to come in bags, and so one day we sort of thought, well, what if we could customize the way those bags looked so that we could have a good branding moment in people's homes. And so we found out that it's actually quite inexpensive to get these beautiful reusable grocery bags produced. So we got them produced in mass in the early days of the company, and then whenever you placed a grocery order, you would get your items in this beautiful bag that you could reuse, and we designed them so that they weren't advertising Instacart. They were just like fun bags, and you'd go and walk around and you'd use them for other things later. And so to this day, if you walk around San Francisco, you'll see people with green Instacart bags, and you can spot them all over the place. And so that cost us money, but we didn't pay the money to acquire the customers. We paid the money to give our existing customers a better experience, which I think is a good example of doing that.
And the partnership marketing?
Yeah, our retail partners are what makes Instacart different, right? We partner with stores like Whole Foods Market, Costco. If you're from the Southeast United States, Publix is a great partner. In Texas, we work with H-E-B. I was just talking backstage with someone who lives in St. Louis, and there we launched with the biggest regional grocer, Schnucks, and it was a very, very successful launch. And so what all these grocery retailers do amazingly well is they know how to market to their customers, and the exact people that we want using Instacart to get their groceries delivered are shopping in the stores. And so we spend a tremendous amount of effort working with our partners to make our marketing inside of the physical grocery stores amazing, and that actually doesn't cost us very much money, but it is very high ROI marketing for us.
Obviously, you're talking to us as a very successful company now. You're operating in 45 markets across the nation. Again, I mentioned you're a $3.4 billion valued company. In retrospect, would you have spent a little more on marketing? Were there any sort of difficulties or challenges? And what did your co-founders think about the fact that you weren't using any money on
we probably would have spent less on marketing if we could have.
Really?
Yeah, we spent a lot of money testing different marketing channels without really knowing what we were doing, And we recently hired a CMO, and her name's Cheryl, and she's wonderful. And the way she describes this is that marketing is an art and a science. And if you don't do both parts of it well, the art part, where you have great marketing, which defines a really powerful marketing message, combined with science, how you measure it and how you make sure that it's high ROI marketing, then it just won't be successful. And so in the early days, we had a little more science and no art. And other times in the company's history, we've had the art but not the science. And so now we're starting to do more marketing because we have a really good understanding on both sides.
So you just mentioned that you've tried a bunch of different channels, right? That obviously you weren't very successful with. What are some of those, and what was the reason behind the failure with those?
I mean, we've tried all the usual channels, and like I said, when we did that without really a good understanding of what messages resonated with consumers, we just weren't getting very good return on that type of investment.
Obviously, you have more money now than you first started.
Mm-hmm.
What's your marketing strategy now? Are you spending more now, and what's your sort of plan?
In a very careful way, we are, but we just raised money, and the reason we wanted to do that was because we have finally figured out the business model for delivering groceries in an hour in America. And we've been able to make that profitable in most of the markets that we're in, and so now we want to scale that. And so we were in 30 cities in America at the beginning of this year, and now we're in 45 markets. We launched 4 markets last week, and we're going to be launching 40 more markets in the next quarter. And by the end of this year, we'll be in probably over 100 markets, and by the end of next year, we want to be covering 80% of America. So the money that we've raised and the way we're growing the company is by expanding geographically, and that's very unique for our service, because we really have to be in the markets where people are in order to grow.
Let's sort of go back to the basics and fundamentals in the very beginning of your business. How did you come up with this idea, you and your co-founders?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we all three of us brought different experiences into the company and different passions. In particular, I was a little bit burnt out on working on just software, and wanted to do something that had a component in the real world where we would actually be affecting people's lives physically, and where you could kind of do something in an app or online and make something magical happen in the real world.
And you worked at Amazon before?
I did not work at Amazon, but my co-founder and our CEO did work at Amazon.
And what makes you guys sort of different from all the other sort of your competitors out there, like Fresh Direct? There is Amazon Fresh. There's a lot coming online as well.
We do something entirely different than those companies. So when people think about their groceries, and this is something that we learned very early on, but a really, really important thing that we learned, people have a very strong affinity towards the grocery store that they shop at, right? We were talking, and you shop at Whole Foods Market. And people understand that Whole Foods, as a brand and as a company, takes a certain level of care with their food and with where they source it from, and what you're going to get when you shop at Whole Foods. And so we deliver groceries from grocery stores, not from warehouses. And people trust that grocery store and trust us to deliver that same quality and selection. And so that's a really key difference. And the other thing is we're just faster. We'll get your groceries delivered to you in an hour or 2 hours, and you just can't do that with most other services.
Great. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that companies, particularly startups, make when they're approaching marketing?
Yeah.
In their
How many people in the audience are on the sort of company side, startup side, or a brand? Okay, maybe half. And so I think I advise some startups, and I think the biggest mistake they make is that they think that by doing advertising and marketing, they will just get growth. Right? They equate them one-to-one. And they also do it too soon in their company's life cycle, right? So if your company hasn't reached product market fit, if you're not really sure what you're offering is really what people want, then it's not really a good time to do paid marketing, because paid marketing is something you do to scale something that's already working.
Right.
And then secondly, if you don't have good unit economics, if you don't understand your unit economics, and if they're not positive, if it costs you more to deliver the service that people are paying, then you really shouldn't be advertising that to try to scale it up. So I see companies make that mistake all the time.
And where do you see Instacart in the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah, in the
Or
next year, I mean, we're growing very, very fast. We're expanding rapidly. We're launching in not the biggest cities in America, right? We launched St. Louis. We're gonna be launching in New Orleans soon. We launched last week in Las Vegas. Launched in Detroit. And so what you're seeing us do is we're going to be launching in all the small and medium-sized cities in
Right.
America. And our model works really, really well there. I mean, even we were skeptical, but after seeing the successful launches in some of the smaller markets and rural areas, there's just great demand for grocery delivery.
We talked about this briefly backstage as well, but people would think this kind of model would work better in big cities, and,
Yeah.
and that's not the case. Could you elaborate? Because I think it's a fascinating.
Yeah, we thought the same thing, and it is true that it takes a certain level of efficiency in a market, both supply and demand, and the careful balance of both, and to produce an efficient and profitable market. But that balance can be achieved at a smaller scale than I think people thought and that we thought. And so we've been able to go into small markets and make it work really, really well. The key is partnering with the right grocery stores, which we have done, and it's been just very, very successful in the small and medium-sized markets.
What has been the biggest challenge for you?
Oh, gosh. Growth is always the number one thing that you have to work on. It's what I personally work on the most at Instacart, and we're doing really, really well on it, but it's also a big challenge. We're constantly finding new ways to use our position to grow faster and smarter, and it's a challenge because you have to be very, very creative to think of new ways to grow, especially new ways to grow without spending money.
What is the one piece of advice that you would give to entrepreneurs just starting their businesses or startups, and not related to marketing, but just one?
Generally.
Generally, one piece of
I would say
advice.
talk to your customers. I don't see young startups doing that enough, and it's super easy to do. One of the other panels I watched was about research, and doing user research is definitely part of talking to customers, but that kind of implies that someone else is going to do it for you. I mean, I like to personally talk to customers, even still. So one of the things that I do is I have like a 30-minute commute in the morning on a train, and so on the train we have a Slack room in our company where anything that any customer says, positive or negative about us, becomes a message, right? In response to a survey that they take. And so I just look at all the negative ones, and I'll just email those customers every morning. So I'll just pick 5 customers, and I'll email them.
Personally?
Yeah, personally. And I'll
Hi,
say,
this is Max.
yeah, hi, this is Max. Hi, Bob. I saw that you 5 minutes ago said you were unhappy with our service because you got raspberries that once you opened them had mold inside or something that we couldn't have done much about. I want to talk to you about that. Call me or send me some thoughts on how we could have done better. And you find just incredible insights from just talking to customers one-to-one all the time. Never stop doing that. And it also blows their mind, right? It's as if your cable company came and serviced your house, and then they called you, automated call comes and says, were you happy? And you say, 2, no, unhappy, right? And then 5 minutes later, the CEO calls you and says, hey, I hear you're unhappy, let's talk about that, right? And so that's a magic moment that you can deliver to your customers. So I would just say talk to your customers just all the time, personally, and make a habit of getting everyone in your company to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. We've talked a little bit about your expansion plans in 6 months, a year period of time. I want to go sort of beyond that, right? Do you have any global expansion plans? What's your brand? Where do you see Instacart?
Yeah, we haven't announced any international expansion yet. It's something we obviously think about. We think this is a really interesting model that will work in other places besides America, but we're laser focused on America. It's a $700 billion market for groceries in the US alone.
And then you mentioned that you want to add another 80 to 100 more markets by the end of this year.
Yeah, 80 to 100 more markets.
So that would be
by the end of
like-
next year. So we'll hopefully be covering 80% of American households which is like about the percent of American households that are within I think a 1 or 2 hour drive of a Walmart, right? So it's like that's a lot of coverage in America.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an ambitious plan.
And it's going to be incredibly difficult. Here we are up here on stage and talking about like it's a done deal, but the team at the offices are working incredibly hard to make that happen, and it's going to be, I think, our biggest challenge, just to make that work and to have the quality stay very, very high as we do that.
Great. Well, I wish you the best of luck, and I look forward to how Instacart grows in coming years.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank
you
you.
all.